Earlier this week in our Star Wars Land update, we mentioned briefly a rumor that was being floated that all of the Paint the Night floats had been packed up and made ready to ship. That was the extent of the rumor, of course, and what follows is just speculation. Questions like, well, why would they pack it up? Where is it going? Is it going to Disney World, or is it going to Shanghai? And I thought we were supposed to keep Paint the Night at Disneyland for when Main Street Electrical Parade is done. Well, now we've got a new wrinkle in the story that may actually straighten things out. Walt Disney World News today is reporting that the Magic Kingdom's Day Parade, Festival of Fantasy, has been moved up an hour. Instead of starting at 3 p.m., the parade will now start at 2 p.m. And this is not a temporary change. This is an indefinite change. And this is important to the conversation about Paint the Night's possible destination, if it is going somewhere, in that it is germane to the reason, the primary concern that people have about bringing in Paint the Night to a park such as the Magic Kingdom at Disney World, because it already has two very popular shows. It's got the aforementioned Festival of Fantasy Parade and the awesome, amazing new fireworks show that they have at night now, Happily Ever After. So, of course, the obvious question is, how would they squeeze in yet another sure to be very popular show in between Festival and Happily Ever After? By moving Festival of Fantasy up to 2 p.m., you give the crowd, you give the hub an extra hour to recuperate, as it were, for the crowds to soften. And this is, at very minimum, something to pay attention to. The move from 3 p.m. to 2 p.m. is not something that exists in a vacuum. There is a purpose for this, other than them just wanting to start it an hour earlier. They've got a definite plan. The question is, what are they trying to effect? The only issue that I would have with respect to importing Paint the Night and how it fits into the schedule is that it doesn't solve the main problem of scheduling, in that there's already a 6-hour difference between Festival of Fantasy and whatever your first nighttime show is going to be. Whereas there's only maybe an hour or so between Paint the Night, if they bring it in, and Happily Ever After. There's not. That's the problem. The problem is working with the crowds between Paint and Happily Ever After. So in my mind, that kind of kills any logical connection one can make with changing the schedule for Festival of Fantasy and its relation to importing Paint the Night. Meanwhile, you've got Move It, Shake It running in between Festival of Fantasy and Happily Ever After. And I believe I heard it reported that they were going to preempt this show because of the popularity of Happily Ever After, because so many people were lining up early to catch this show. It was clogging up the hub. So perhaps moving Festival of Fantasy up an hour gives more room for this show, for Move It, Shake It to appear. Having said that, it's not a good show. Move It, Shake It is not a good show, and I don't think anybody would miss it, and it's probably the first thing that I would get rid of in order to make room for something new like Paint the Night. But that doesn't mean that the story of Paint the Night coming into Walt Disney World is over, and that's because I don't believe that scheduling is an issue at all, actually. And I say that because this is something that Disneyland has already been dealing with, or had been dealing with previously when they were running it for the 60th. They were running Paint the Night, and then 30 minutes later, the fireworks show, and then Paint the Night again, as a matter of fact, right after the fireworks show. And they were doing this in a space that is more cramped than the Magic Kingdom. So I feel like that part of the argument maybe isn't necessary. They're going to find a way to make it work, or they would find a way to make it work, just like they did at Disneyland. Conversely, does the Magic Kingdom, does Disney World really need Paint the Night? What is the point of incurring all that expense, which it is a lot of expense, to ship a parade in whole from California to Florida, if it isn't necessary? If Disney World doesn't have a very specific plan for Paint the Night, a purpose for it, then why do it? In other words, does Disneyland need the parade more than the Magic Kingdom, or even Shanghai for that matter, or any other park in the Disney family? But what do you think, Fresh Baked? Does it make sense for Disney to ship out this parade to another park, or does it upset you as a fan of Disneyland? Or are you willing to share it with other parks in the Disney family? Let us know, you guys, in the comments below, and until next time, Fresh Baked!